Hello. Today is Great and Holy Tuesday of Holy Week. And traditionally, the church has always had a reading of the 10 bridesmaids. And when I say tradition, I mean the church, not just Toledo Foursquare, but from early Orthodoxy on. And so I wanted to read that out of Matthew 25, verses 1 through 13. It says, when the end comes, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 bridesmaids. They took their oil lamps and went to meet the groom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish bridesmaids took their lamps, but they didn't take any extra oil. The wise bridesmaids, however, took along extra oil for their lamps. Since the groom was late, all the bridesmaids became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, someone shouted, "The groom is here. Come to meet him." Then all the bridesmaids woke up and got their lamps ready. The foolish ones said to the wise ones, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." But the wise bridesmaids replied, "We can't do that. There won't be enough for both of us. Go find someone to sell you some oil." While they were buying oil, the groom arrived. The bridesmaids who were ready went with him into the wedding hall, and the door was shut. Later, the other bridesmaids arrived and said, Sir, open the door for us." But he answered them, "I don't even know who you are. So stay awake, because you don't know the day or the hour." And of course, that's about the return of the Lord, the second coming. And that's an important thing for us to think about, that we don't know the day or the hour. And so as we look at that, we want to think in those terms. And so some points and observations that I have about that would be, everyone wants to go to the wedding, but not everyone wants to keep the necessary vigil. And that's very much what this is about. That the ladies that brought extra oil were in it no matter what, but the ladies that didn't bring enough oil, they were hoping for a shorter waiting period. And so for them it was like, well, we're just taking some time out for this wedding, but it needs to be over at a certain time. Where the other bridesmaids were more like, we are in this no matter what it takes. We're going to be part of this wedding. And so that's the distinction. And we of course know that's an analogy to Christianity, that there are some people who think Christianity is a good idea and they love it and all of that, but they just want to try it out, and then they might change their mind. They're that seed that springs up and dries up, and the parable of the sower. And I was thinking about that, because when something happens like a global pandemic, a lot of people decide, hey, maybe I should get serious about God. Maybe something's happening here. And that's a good thing. We saw that with 9/11. A lot of people, all of a sudden, they were interested in God. Something's happening. Could this be it? Could this be the last days? And that's a good response. But then when things settled down and there was peace, they changed their mind and they got lazy. Those are the people without enough oil in their lamp. And I would say, if the circumstances surrounding the challenging situation in relation to this coronavirus, if those circumstances have inspired you to get serious about God, that's a good thing. But when things get better, don't quit. When things improve and everybody's out shopping and all of that kind of the scare and the problems associated subside, don't get lazy. Keep oil in your lamp. And that's the difference. The other thing is that the foolish, unprepared bridesmaids wanted to coast along on the wisdom of the others. And so they say, "Give us oil." And when I read that, it makes me think of people who want me to lower my Christian standards of discipleship so that they won't feel badly about how their walk with Jesus is. And we see that there are people who want us to lower or compromise our convictions so they don't look bad. And that's the idea with the wise and foolish bridesmaids. The foolish bridesmaids say, give us some of your oil because we're going to look stupid if you don't give us some of your oil. And maybe, you could even think, well, if we all run short of oil, then the groom will think it's his fault. But the lesson is, you need to keep the light of the Lord burning in your life, even when things are going well. So there will always be people who want you to be a little less saved, so they will feel a little more saved. And that, I've been a Christian a lot of years, and that's really, I've seen that over the years. There are always those Christians that want the dedicated to be a little less dedicated so they don't feel so lukewarm. And you know what? We're not doing this so people feel good. We're doing this because God is real and Jesus is coming back. And the other thing I observed is that the foolish bridesmaids weren't left out because they were wicked. They were left out because they were foolish. Because they got lazy about their preparation for the wedding. And if you want to be lazy about how you serve the Lord, you might miss the boat. There'll be people who miss out on the second coming of the Lord, not because they are horribly wicked people, but because they were lazy about walking with Jesus. Jesus said the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And you can read that in Mark chapter 12, verse 30. And, we say, well, how can such a nice person go to hell? If you break the greatest commandment, you're the greatest of sinners. And the greatest commandment is to love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. So if you're not doing that, you're the greatest sinner by breaking the greatest commandment, the most important commandment in the Bible. So it's something to think about. Get serious about the Lord and stay serious this Holy Week. Keep the vigil. Be vigilant with your Christian experience. So we get that. This is a parable of marriage. It represents the final resurrection, when we will be finally wed to Jesus Christ as his bride. The waiting period is like the time when Jesus was in the tomb. It didn't seem like anything was happening. The disciples were all alone, but Sunday was coming and the Lord was going to raise. And sometimes the tomb represents that. We're here on earth and we're waiting and we're going through the motions and it doesn't seem like something's happening. But Sunday's coming. And the Lord said, I'll come back for you. And so the ultimate message is that a walk with Christ is not an experiment. It is a lifetime commitment. Now think of that. Your walk with Christ is not an experiment. It's a lifetime commitment. Stir up a commitment this Holy Week that will last a lifetime. God bless you, and we will see you tomorrow and talk about Spy Wednesday.